Hey folks, today we're going to cook up a tender strip. Now what is a tender strip, you may ask? The tender strip is also known as Teres Major in Latin. If you know anything about anatomy, that tells you it's located on the back of the shoulder blade. Now, the front quarter of the animal typically renders itself or lends itself better to low and slow cooking because you have the pork butt, pork neck, etc., picnic shoulder. Why do they lend themselves better to low and slow cooking? Well, that's because they contain more fat, they contain more connective tissue. Connective tissue is great for breaking down the collagen into gelatin, and that basically means you get more tender meat and tastier meat, of course. But there are exceptions to the rule, so basically you can cook up a good steak from the front quarter of the animal. The tender strip is just that type of steak, just like the flat iron steak is, and they're actually located quite close to each other. This is what it looks like, 400 grams roughly, 14 ounces. It's quite small, but it's a real delicacy, I would say. So we're gonna cook this up just like a steak. Almost hot and fast, but not quite, and I'll explain how. So what type of cut is this? I mean, quality of this is, it's called WX. WX means Wagyu Angus crossbreed. Now, it's typically when you hear Wagyu that, well, for one, it means prices go up, but also it typically means just better flavor and better marbling, because you get that cross between the Angus, which is great quality beef if raised well, also the Wagyu, which basically means the fat content is slightly different. There's just a higher bit of unsaturated fats in Wagyu versus the Angus, so you get a really nice combination. Well, fat types aside, Wagyu or not, the real relevant thing to always look at is of course marbling. Now, looking at this piece, you can see there's quite a bit of intermuscular fat. That really is a guarantee almost for great flavor and great tasting beef. And as you can see, this cut has plenty of it. So, how are we going to season this up? Well, of course, it's a steak, and we're going to use a steak rub. I'm going to use my own brand, Hank's Signature Steak Rub. This is what it looks like. I've just redesigned the labels. The old one looked like this, but the content is exactly the same. Now, the nice thing about this one is it's not just your ordinary steak rub like salt, garlic, pepper, and black pepper, but actually it contains coffee and chipotle chili, so this adds a real good flavor boost to an already good quality type of beef. So that's what we're going to use. I'm going to apply this, we're going to wait a few hours, and then we're going to grill it up on the PK. Because why not cook on the #1 steak searing machine, the PK? I really like it. Great little grill, more than capable, holds temp rock steadily, and above all, the reason it is such a steak machine is because the bed of charcoal, the glowing embers, are really close to the grill grates. That means short distance, and short distance means high heat, and that's exactly what you want when you're grilling steak. So let's get started prepping. And we're gonna apply the rub just like I usually do. Sprinkle a good layer on both sides. I'm gonna leave this in the fridge for a few hours before cooking it up on the PK grill. Just eyeballing this, patting it down. Flip the steak over. Usually I don't use a binder because typically the meat is moist enough so you don't need it. And I think that especially holds true for steaks. Well, I mean, I usually, even for steaks, I use binders even less because I just want the meat and the rub flavor, but that should be good. So how are we gonna do this cook? Well, I'm put the charcoal on one side, I'm gonna put the meat on the indirect side, as I always do. This is a relatively thin cut, so we could just grill it directly, but it's relatively thick still in the middle. So what I plan on doing is just putting it here for 20 minutes, then we'll move it over, give it a quick sear, and then bring it in, let it rest a few minutes and slice it. It's gonna be good. Now the grill is coming up to temp, so I'm just gonna put the meat right here and I'll put the probe in. I'm not so much worried about grill temp, I'll just let it rip, but I'm gonna leave this for 15 to 20 minutes roughly. I'll keep an eye out on my fireboard too. So exactly 20 minutes later, and that steak's been on, and the temp in the meat is 40 degrees. So now it's time to move it over to give it a good sear. Now when I'm here, I'd like to flip often to get it done as quickly as possible, but at the same time we want a bit of char on the surface, so leave it for a minute or two and then flip and keep going. But this shouldn't take long because it's almost done. That's looking good. So target temp is 54 roughly Celsius, but it's quite uneven in thickness, so we're gonna have to do some kind of average here. 52, 59, yeah, it's gonna be more done in the ends. And that's looking good. I think we're gonna pull it because there's gonna be, even though it's a small steak, it's gonna be just a bit of carryover heat. Well, I don't know about you guys, but this is a Tenderstrip I sure like to taste. Man, that turned out good. So it's been resting for 5 minutes. I think that's good, so it's time to slice this sucker up and see what it's like. Oh man, that's looking good. Just perfect, according to my taste preferences. Oh, sweet. Let's sample this. Just right, just right. All right, time to check this one out. Well, sure lives up to its name, tender, as in Tenderstrip. Oh, this is just a delicacy. Just as tender as a beef tenderloin. Coming from the shoulder, that's pretty impressive. And that rub flavor, the meat and the coffee and the chipotle chili is just perfect. I think the doneness was just perfect for me too. This is ideal. I mean, I'd like it pink, but not raw in the middle. So this is just right. Such an enjoyable steak. So that was a fun cook, a quick cook, more grilling than smoking, but I really enjoyed it. And that Tenderstrip is like king. So if you're looking for a new cut you haven't tried, like a traditional steak, but still from the forequarter of the animal, then Tenderstrip or Teres Major is the way to go. So go check it out. If you like the video, please subscribe. That means a lot, giving me some support. All right, thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys next episode.